This video contains spoilers for Sonic Frontiers, the Metal-verse saga from IDU, the Archie comics, and more. If you don't want to see any spoilers, then click off of the video.
Sonic the Hedgehog is a franchise that needs no introduction. It's one of the most well-known franchises in all of gaming history. One of the reasons it's so well-known is the large amount of characters that appear in the different forms of media from the franchise. And in this video, I'm going to be ranking my top 15 characters. Without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
The first character I'm talking about is Mighty the Armadillo. He hasn't appeared a whole lot, and any of his appearances outside of the comics don't even involve him speaking. However, based on his actions in things like Sonic Mania Adventures, you can figure out a bit about him. One of those things is that he is willing to fight using his incredible strength, but not when it further endangers his friends. However, he is willing to fight in order to save his friends, as we can tell from when he fought Metal Sonic to save Ray. In the games, however, he doesn't do much outside of what the player makes him do. If you've only played the games, you may only know him as the guy who can hold onto walls, bounce off spikes, and slam into the ground. In his first appearance, being Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega Sonic being one word for some reason, in 1993 in Japanese arcade games, he's nothing more than just a reskin of Sonic. In the game Knuckles Chaotix from 1995, he gained a bit more originality when he gained the ability to hold on to walls. He wouldn't appear in the games again until Sonic Generations in 2011, with a 16-year gap between appearances. In Sonic Generations, his appearance is relatively small, just being a cameo on a poster in the background of one of the levels. He wouldn't go on to make another in-game appearance until Sonic Mania Plus in 2018, 7 whole years after Sonic Generations. In this game, he lost the ability to grab onto walls, but instead he can bounce off spikes and slam into the ground, shaking the screen. This game would be the first time his strength had been demonstrated in games. As of now, those are his only appearances outside of the comics. And since I haven't read a singular comic that has him in it, I am unable to go over those. So, because of that, I'm just gonna move on to the next character.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
You didn't think I would discuss Mighty without his best buddy Ray the Flying Squirrel, did you? Of course I wouldn't leave him out, even though he has less appearances than Mighty. In Sonic Mania Adventures, we can see that he cares a lot about his friend Mighty. An example of this is when he sees Mighty and gets excited because, of course, he sees his friend that he's been looking for. In the games, he obviously has much less personality. He appears in all the same games as Mighty, except Ray is absent from Knuckles Chaotix. In Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, he, much like Mighty, is just a reskin of Sonic. In Sonic Mania Plus, he does gain his own unique ability, being the ability to glide in a similar way to the Cape Feather in Super Mario World. He also appears in the comics just like Mighty, but I haven't read the comics that he's in either, so I'm out of stuff to say about him. Hopefully I don't accidentally go this in-depth with the rest of the characters in this list, but looking at the script, I do go this in-depth with more characters.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Next up on the list is Miles Prower, also known as Tails. Wait, I really put this guy here? Why? I'm just kidding, I know why. But I'm not going super in-depth with him, partially because I don't want this video to be an hour long, but I'm also considering making a whole video about the way he's portrayed in the games. So I'm gonna try to keep this brief. I like the way he went from being not much other than Sonic's flying sidekick to becoming his own genius hero. Of course, they would undo this in Sonic Heroes, literally right after they made him his own hero. He just went back to the way he was. But he wouldn't actually be written bad until the Colors era. If you're not familiar with the Colors era, it's pretty much just the era of Sonic games from Sonic Colors to either Sonic Forces, Team Sonic Racing, or Sonic Colors Ultimate. I couldn't find out which of those games it ended with, but that doesn't really matter for this video. After the Colors era had Tails written as someone who heavily relies on Sonic to help him, Sonic Frontiers would go on to redeem him. He asked Sonic if he's a burden because of how much he's relied on Sonic, but Sonic reassured him that he's helped plenty of times. Not to mention the fact that he can do things without Sonic in the IDW comics. With that being said, it's time to move on to the next character. Man, this script sucks.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
He's rougher than the rest of them, the best of them, and tougher than leather. He's Knuckles the Echidna. Not funny? Are you sure? I mean, I thought it was kind of funny. Oh, okay. Anyway, Knuckles is the guardian of the Master Emerald, which is what keeps his home, Angel Island, floating in the sky instead of falling in the ocean. Though, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're probably already familiar with that. You're also probably familiar with how many times Dr. Eggman has tricked Knuckles into helping him, so that Eggman can take the emerald. The first time we see Knuckles, he was tricked into thinking Eggman was good and Sonic and Tails are the villains. Later, in the same game, Eggman would take the Master Emerald from Knuckles, making him realize Eggman is the true villain. He then goes on to help Sonic and Tails beat Eggman. Knuckles would then go on to get tricked by Eggman multiple times after this. I don't know how someone can be that gullible. You'd think he would know better after the first time, right? Anyway, despite being gullible, he isn't necessarily stupid, except in Sonic Boom and Sonic 06. I don't have anything to add on to that. He's been written as an idiot, like, in 2 things. I can't think of much else to say about him, other than the fact that he's got physical strength. I don't know how he went this long without saying it. So I guess it's on to the next characters.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
That's right. 2 characters at once, since I can't decide which one is better. I'm also not going super in-depth, because I might eventually do a video about them. But anyways, Tangle the Lemur and Whisper the Wolf were introduced in the IDW comics. Tangle at first was just a regular citizen in a small town, but after the events of Sonic Forces, she started fighting badniks and found out how much she loves fighting bad guys using her incredibly long tail. And Whisper is a more quiet individual who uses her battle skills and variable Wispin to fight bad guys. If you're asking what variable Wispin is, I have no clue. It's just the weapons from Sonic Forces, I guess. And they use the Wisp to power them. If you don't know what the Wisp are, then why are you even watching this video in the first place? Anyways, if I recall correctly, one of the writers for the comics said that these 2 would be a couple if Sega didn't have a no relationships rule. I don't 100% know if that's true, but if it is, that's cool, I guess. I don't know, I don't have much to say. I haven't read all the comics. Just like the first 2 volumes of the IDW collection. So, on to the next characters, I guess?
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Yep, more characters that are tied for the same spots. Except now it's 3 of them. Don't worry, there are no more ties after these guys. Oh god, I just remembered. I'm looking at the script and this part's gonna suck to have to read. Oh god. Be prepared for the worst time of your life. Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy Bee are a group of best friends known as the Chaotix. They are a detective agency, although they'll pretty much do anything for money as long as it isn't, I guess, scandalous is the best way to put it. Vector is the leader, Charmy is basically their mascot, I guess, and Espio is a ninja? What? Why? Anyway, these three are always together, except when Espio was in Sonic the Fighters, and when Vector was in Sonic Free Riders and Team Sonic Racing. And of course, Charmy was in the old manga before these two even existed. Well, I guess there was some old concept art of Vector being in a band with Sonic. But other than that, I have nothing interesting to say about Espio and Vector. Charmy, however, has had a lot of interesting things happen to him in the Archie comics. For starters, he became like a king or a prince or something, and had a fiance named Saffron, or Saffron. I don't know how it's said. I'm gonna say Saffron. It just rolls off the tongue better, I guess. But the things that happened in the Archie comics weren't always good, because eventually his best friend named Mellow B would overdose on a drug called lemon sundrop dandelion, which is an obvious reference to LSD. He died. Charmy also used a bit of this drug. I don't remember why. I don't know if there was a reason at all, but he did it. Don't worry though, things do get worse from here. There was a point in the comics where his whole kingdom or hive or whatever was destroyed, with him and Saffron being the only survivors. But don't worry, it still gets worse for this little insect. You see, the comics had based him off of his appearance in the game Knuckles Chaotix, and the manual for that had accidentally said his age is 16. But in the 2000s, I believe 2003 or 4 in Sonic Heroes, they made his age 6, which is what it was meant to be the whole time. But the Archie comics had already made him 16. So, in order to match up with the games, the comics had to make him act more like a 6-year-old. What did they do to do this? Hit him with a wacky, goofy age array? Make him drink a de-aging potion? Something with time travel? If you said brain damage, you would be correct. After all the stuff that happened to him, they felt that he should have brain damage so that he thinks he's 6. His fiancée Saffron had to just become his caretaker after this. Oh, but don't worry, that still isn't the end of it for this little bee. Eventually, Ken Penders, one of the writers for the comic at that point, I think you're probably familiar with him if you're a big Sonic fan, he decided that he should sue Sega so that he can take a bunch of characters that he even slightly helped create. And then he just left the franchise, taking the characters. One of the characters he took was Saffron. As we've already established, she was Charmy's fiancée and caretaker. Now, he had brain damage, a dead best friend, and his fiancée had to leave. I kind of feel bad for this little bug boy. As far as I know, that's where the end of his misery in the Archie comics is. But don't worry, I still have to talk about the Fleetway comics. In these comics, Charmy was also royalty. Why'd they both decide to make him royalty? I don't get that. But in these, he was 16, just like he was in Archie. Thankfully, though, I don't think they gave him any brain damage for that or anything. But he would always hang out with Knuckles, Vector, Espio, and Mighty. They did not respect him. They would just always bully him. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was name-calling and a bit of physical aggression as well. Sonic was also guilty of this. Charmy thought that they were all just messing with him, just playing around. Thankfully, I don't know of any more miserating things that happened to this bug in Fleetway. But there's something I need to talk about in the IDW comics. In these comics, there's this thing called the robot virus. Basically, it turns anyone who so much as touches someone with it into a mindless evil robot called a Zombot, because it's a zombie robot. Yeah, good pun, guys. Now, what does this have to do with Charmy, or any of the Chaotix, for that matter? Well, Charmy was the first of 2 Chaotix members to get infected with it. Vector and Espia would just carry around zombified Charmy inside of a small capsule thing, so that they wouldn't lose him. Vector would also get infected later on, but I haven't gotten to that point. I just saw that online. Well, that's it for the Chaotix, thankfully. This wasn't as terrible to read as I anticipated. Still kind of sucked to read, though. But anyways, it's time to discuss the next character. No more ties from here on out, though. No one's tied for the same spot, thankfully. So I can stop with that.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Dr. Ivo Robotnik, also known as Dr. Eggman, is next. Thankfully, I don't have nearly as much to say about him as I did with the Chaotix. So I guess let's just get on with it. The main reason I like Dr. Robotnik is because I think villains who build robots are kind of cool. Although I do enjoy how menacing he was before the Colors era. During the Colors era, he did have some funny moments, though. He would be menacing again in Forces and Frontiers, though, which was pretty nice to see. And in Frontiers, he made this AI named Sage. At first, he thought of Sage as nothing more than a machine meant to help him with his evil schemes. But as the game goes on, he becomes more and more attached to Sage, starting to think of her as his daughter. He was genuinely upset when she had to sacrifice herself to save the world. It's because of that he's in this list at all. Anyways, on to the top 5, I guess.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Starting off the top 5, we have Metal Sonic. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say about him. He's just a cool, violent robot, which I like about him. He does have moments where he actually shows his feelings, though, such as in Sonic Heroes and the IDW comics when he becomes Neo Metal Sonic. However, I don't feel like analyzing his character when I'm so close to finishing this list. I mean, I finally got to the top 5, after all. I don't want to do this any longer than I have to. Maybe I'll eventually do a whole video about him, but I don't know for sure. No guarantee. Anyways, it's on to the next character, I guess.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Did you really expect my top 15 list to not include Shadow the Hedgehog? He's one of the few characters who's pretty much guaranteed to be in most people's top 15. But anyways, like with Metal Sonic, I really don't want to analyze him too much here because of how much time I spent on Charmy, you know. Plus I've got stuff to do. I don't want to just sit here all day talking about Shadow. So I'll just say that I'm a fan of Sonic Heroes and the Shadow the Hedgehog game, and we'll just pretend that's why he's in this list. On to the next character. I'm getting sick of these transitions, but yeah, let's just move on to number 3.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Jet the Hawk is a character who has only ever appeared in spin-off material, except for when Sonic said his name in Sonic Frontiers, of course. And he is also in the comics. But I suppose you could argue that that's spin-off material. I mean, I guess it technically is, but it's still canon. But despite only being in spin-offs like Sonic Riders, he still manages to get me to like him more than most other characters. Even Sonic himself, who is pretty low on my list of favorite Sonic characters. I like Jet because he tries to be the fastest thing alive on hoverboards, and he was very egotistical about it in the first Sonic Riders game. But he does end up getting less egotistical, and in Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, he ends up racing with Sonic just to have fun, you know? And then another bit of character growth I enjoy about him is how, in the first Riders game, he tries cheating to win in races. I don't know if that was grammatically correct. I'm gonna retry that one. Another bit of character growth I enjoy about Jet is how, in the first Sonic Riders game, he was trying to cheat to win in races. But in Sonic Free Riders, when his teammate Wave makes Jet, Wave, and their other teammate Storm cheat without Jet and Storm knowing, Jet does end up finding out, and once he does, he challenges Sonic to a fair rematch, this time with no cheating involved, because he just does not want to cheat anymore. I genuinely don't have much else to say about him, and in case you couldn't tell by now, I do suck at transitioning between things, so let's just move on so that this can be over with.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Silver the Hedgehog used to be my favorite Sonic character. However, within the past couple of months, he was bumped down to second place. But this doesn't necessarily mean that he's not great. I mean, who else do you know who always travels back in time to ensure that their time period ends up not being terrible? And actually, he's one of the characters where I feel like he was only unnecessary in a couple of games, being Sonic Free Riders and the Olympics, because there weren't any stakes that would like destroy the future, so he doesn't need to be there. I don't plan on going in depth with him right now, because I do plan to eventually make a video about him. So instead of explaining why I like him so much, I'll just give you a quote from the Hedgehog himself, and then we'll move on to my favorite character.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man. I'm a freak, man. Like, for real.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won.
Before I even start talking about this character, I just want to go ahead and say that I won't go super in depth with this character. And why is that, you probably aren't asking? You probably know already. I'm planning a video about this character. Now then, who is this mystery character? It's Amy. Amy's the mystery character. Like I said, I'm not going super in depth, but I'll still talk about her a bit, you know, because I kind of have to. She's my favorite one, why would I not? In Sonic Adventure, she finds this little blue bird that's being chased by one of Robotnik's robots. She promises to help the bird get to safety. She then runs into Sonic and asks him to take care of the bird. I've heard some people say that she doesn't want to help the bird because of her obsession with Sonic, but I see it as her thinking about how Sonic has saved her life in the past, so it would only make sense that he could save a little bird. In the end, though, Amy ends up destroying the robot that was chasing the bird. She also helped E102 Gamma essentially develop his own free will and quit working for Eggman. Then, in Sonic Adventure 2, she isn't playable, so she isn't as prominent in the game, but she does end up being the one who convinced Shadow to be good and help Sonic save the world. I don't know how to wrap up this part, so I guess it's on to the ending. So, those were my top 15 favorite Sonic characters. Surprised Sonic wasn't here? So was I. This video didn't even start out as plans for a video. I was just talking about my favorite Sonic characters with one of my brothers, and I said Sonic would probably only be like 15th on my list. But then the more I thought about it, the lower the placement he ended up getting on the list. He's only around 90th place now. Of course, that's not including characters like Marine the Raccoon and other ones where I'm not allowed to judge them because I never watched any of their cutscenes or read their comics or anything. But, I guess this is the end of the video. Feel free to let me know who your favorite characters are in the comments below. Goodbye, losers. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please, I need this. Please. Please, don't leave. No.